of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise today in solidarity with my good friend from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to raise an important issue that my constituents, that I know my friend from Pennsylvania and his constituents care about, and frankly, constituents all over this country care about, and that is the state of the fiscal crisis facing our country right now. This is really not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. All hardworking American taxpayers of all political persuasions should be concerned about the state of the fiscal mess that we face in our country. A $31 trillion national debt that is literally burying our children and our grandchildren in a mountain of debt. This is mortgaging our future, and we need to get our fiscal house in order. The American taxpayer works hard for their income, and they deserve a government that lives within its means. And that's why I'm proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with my colleague, Mr. Smucker, Congressman Smucker, who is going to highlight this issue of fiscal recklessness, the need to tighten our belts, to live within our means so that we do not continue to put this burden on our children and our grandchildren. We need to stop the spending spree and live within our means. And just to highlight how serious this problem is, Madam Speaker, it's not a lack of tax revenue. The issue is not that we don't tax the American people enough from Washington, D.C. The issue is that we are overspending. In fact, this year, the federal government has raised more revenue from taxes than in any period in history. And it's actually over $1 trillion when you consider inflation. $1 trillion more in tax revenue in inflation-adjusted terms. So the problem with our debt and deficit is not that we are taxing the American people too little. The problem is that we're living beyond our means, spending well beyond our means, and it's not only threatening the future fiscal solvency of our country. This overspending, this addiction to deficit spending has delivered a historic 40-year high inflation crisis. It has created excess demand, and when combined with the constraints that this administration has put on energy production, it's a classic supply-demand mismatch, overspending, creating excess demand, combined with constraining energy, a war on domestic energy production, constraining the supply. That supply-demand mismatch has pushed up prices. And what's the result of that, Madam Speaker? It means that the Federal Reserve must engage in a precipitous quantitative tightening process. It must raise interest rates fast. It must engage in tightening of monetary policy. And what does that mean? Higher interest rates. And higher interest rates means higher debt costs, debt service costs. We have to pay higher interest on the national debt, which compounds the problem. So the solution, Madam Speaker, for the fiscal policymakers, those of us in the Congress and in the White House and the executive branch, is to start living within our means. And then, and only then, can we get our inflation crisis under control and the Federal Reserve can start lowering interest rates once again. And so with that, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania for his leadership in advocating for fiscal sanity in Washington, the restoration of fiscal responsibility. We need to exercise fiscal discipline and get this ship turned around. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield to my friend from Pennsylvania. Let me yield back to the chair so that the chair can